Welcome to Deep Dive Film School.
This week we're going to continue our John Carpenter Festival with 1987's Prince of Darkness.
Let's dive in. Everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Palcher. If you like what you see or hear, please subscribe to Deep Dive Film School. Search for us on the interwebs for Deep Dive Film School, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff.
Nicely done.
Thank
all
you.
the things.
All of the
so,
things.
This is the third installment of our John Carpenter Festival. This is, as you said, 1987's The Prince of Darkness. Now, the reason why Carpenter made this film is because he really felt like, well, interestingly enough...
You're going to have to help me through this one.
Okay, hold on. Interestingly enough, the movie right before this that he did was what we're going to do next week, Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, okay. But this is the Apocalypse trilogy, right?
This is the second one. The second one in the
After
Apocalypse
the thing,
trilogy.
but before In the Mouth of Madness.
Agreed.
Okay.
Now,
I'm glad you agree with facts.
Not agreed. I agree with your facts. Your facts are
Fake
agreed
news.
upon. Sorry, but Big Trouble in Little China was a huge flop. Unfortunately, when it came out, again, another one of these things where you're like, poor John. Like if you only knew, if you could only see into the future, you would know.
I get that his tastes are not for everyone.
They're not.
No
They're
doubt.
not.
I get that.
But again, if the Tekahedrons or whatever it is from this movie that sends a transmission back from the future into the past, if one of them could have been like, in the year 1999, you'll be much more famous for movies you think are a flop than they are right now. That would be an amazing thing to do for John Carpenter, because it probably wouldn't make him feel that bad. But what he did was he pulled out of the major movie label deal that he had and did Prince of Darkness as an independent feature, just like he did his early films, because he was like, I don't want to screw around with any of the major companies anymore. I just want to like make a movie that I want to make. And the reason why he chose to make this movie is he felt like most horror that he saw out there was really derivative of earlier things. I think probably his own movies included. So a lot of slasher stuff, a lot of like body horror kind of stuff. And he was really fascinated, and he'd been talking about it all the way back since he did The Thing, about sort of the idea of quantum physics and the idea about sort of something that was science-based and how that played in with religion and all that stuff.
And antimatter.
All that stuff really fascinated him. And so he wrote this script based upon that. Now, this thing, I'll say right out of the gates, I'm so glad that we're reviewing this thing, because it's such a wacky, weird movie to me. And I think that I actually... several years ago, wrote into one of my favorite websites. I'll give them a free plug right now, but the website Kinder Trauma, which if you like horror, go check out Kinder Trauma. It's a fantastic website all about people writing in about the movies that terrified them as children, or like moments from movies that terrified them as children. So you think about something like Large Marge, right? Sure. And you're like, not a scary movie. That moment might be the most traumatic thing that you experienced as a kid. Gotcha. And so it's a whole website based around that.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But in talking or in writing into them, and they were saying like, what's not a guilty pleasure, but what's something that you feel like is maybe controversial within the horror realm? And I was like, Prince of Darkness. So many things I love about the movie, and so much of it that doesn't work. Oh, yeah. But again, like that doesn't mean that I didn't like going back and watching it again this last week. I loved watching it again, even though I'm like, this doesn't work, and that doesn't work, and this is corny, or whatever.
Don't worry, I'll point all those things out.
Good, perfect. But again, it doesn't mean that, at least for me, at its heart, what it's talking about still isn't like great horror movie like fodder, because I totally think it is.
There's definitely some good ideas here, but the execution... You know, this is actually the only one of our festival that I haven't seen before. I don't think I've seen this one. I've seen all the others. And this one, I just haven't seen it. And no reason why necessarily, but the well, maybe there's a reason, but this is, oh man, this one you'll have to talk me into a little bit. I was not a huge fan. I thought a lot of it didn't work. It does have some good ideas, but the execution just didn't land. And like, this movie, more than anything, is striving for a star. Like, it needs a movie star in this movie.
Wait a minute, this has Jameson Parker. This stars Jameson Parker.
Fresh off of a porno with that fucking mustache.
No, fresh off of the set of Simon and Simon. Now kids watching at home, there used to be a thing called TV. Mm-hmm. And on TV,
they know about it.
There used to be episodes of shows, and some of them were comedies and some of them were dramas and some of them were this weird in between. And a lot of those starred detectives, I'd like to say. And there was one about two brothers. And it was called Simon and Simon.
Oh, that's cute.
And Jameson Parker is one of those Simons.
He's a Simon.
He's one of the Simons.
Tell me that's not a porno stash.
It is such a porno stash.
This
no,
movie,
you're.
like,
I completely agree with you.
It needed someone to grab hold, and because it feels like I'm in a movie that people are just sitting around, like, waiting for things to happen, and like, you need like not only just the presence of a good actor, because these are all John Carpenter regulars.
Well, and most of them are
all
TV. Most of them are like TV stars. They're all from
all
like
the side characters, but they get their own movie now.
Yeah, everybody in this thing is like from like Dallas and Falcon Crest.
Yeah, it is dying for a real movie star.
Right.
And like
a Kurt Russell.
Yeah, totally. And like someone that you can latch onto. I didn't latch onto anyone in this movie.
Not even Victor Wong. I love Victor Wong.
He's fine, but like.
And actually, Dennis Dune is great too. Yeah, who also is in Big Trouble in Little China.
As a side character, they're great. This movie's full of side characters.
That is true.
And those guys and that girl and those kind of people, and I was just waiting for like something to grab onto. So like, it has some cool elements, and I actually really love the ending. But for the most part, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, even the stuff at the beginning where like this isn't even part of the movie, but this credit sequence in his movie, I clocked it. It goes on for 11 minutes, but we're going through the movie, like the movie's happening, and they keep cutting away, and it's 11 minutes until John Carpenter's name is on there.
I didn't realize it was 11.
What is he doing?
I didn't realize it was 11 minutes long, but I will say I do like how much of that early kind of exposition is done without there being any dialogue, like especially the stuff with Donald Pleasant. I like all that.
Dialogue, though.
Well, but a lot of it there isn't, especially the Donald Pleasant stuff where he's going to the other priests and all this.
Okay.
In fact, his character,
finding the chest.
Yeah,
and stuff
his character
like that.
never even gets a name, which I like all that. Like, I think that all that really works.
He's the cop in Halloween, right?
He's not the cop. He's the doctor.
Doctor. That's
he's
right.
Dr. Loomis.
That's right. Loomis.
Yes. But yeah, and all of that works for me. Like, I didn't realize it was 11 minutes long. You're right. That's pretty long.
Come on, it's a credit sequence.
It's a credit sequence.
We don't need to know.
I guess I was just wrapped up in it because there was still that like.
The soundtrack is cool.
Like
it's this low, techie
electronic
thing that he loves.
And I think that those are my favorite moments in this movie. Are this kind of like creeping dread of like this weird church. And the sort of like the homeless people congregating in corners.
And the oldest college students you've ever seen in
That
your
is
life.
true.
There's literally a guy that's balding in this college.
It's Dirk Blocker. That's the guy who spills all the beers at the beginning of Poltergeist.
Yes, I know who it is. He's not a fucking college student.
Maybe he is. I don't know. How long do you go to
get his PhD?
I'm not a scientist. I don't know how long you have to go to college to become a scientist. How long do you have to go to college to become a scientist? Apparently, like 12 years?
At least
15. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think that there are problems here. But I really love sort of the base concept here, which is that there is this hidden group of priests, the Brotherhood of Sleep, who have been tasked with. Kind of reminded me of the Knights of the Templar in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade who are like watching over the one cup, right? And it's kind of the same thing here where it's like all these priests have been like basically been deemed to spend their life watching over this canister, this thing that has like evil. It's like it is Satan. I mean, it kind of does this reverse engineering to the entire idea of theology of saying Jesus wasn't just a guy, he was an alien. So we're back to the ancient alien thing with the guy with the crazy hair.
Yep.
And that Satan, for all intent and purpose, is the antimatter version of goodness,
Like
of
a liquid
Jesus,
embodiment of Satan.
of evil, of not even evil. It's like it's the reverse of good, right? And I do like that concept. It's a very original concept to say for each particle, there's an anti of that particle.
Yeah. Like I said, great ideas, just bad execution.
I mean, I do love that set piece of the big canister with all the crosses around it and the swirling mass.
For sure, but like that kind of
It
becomes
evokes
irrelevant
something really
later.
creepy to me.
It does, but like it goes away. We don't really go back to it. It starts being inside of people, and that's just how they get infected, right?
Right.
And so that just, we don't even see it again. It's
The
gone.
canister's gone.
Well, I mean, it's there, but they don't show it that much, right? That's not the main focus. That's the whole reason.
Yeah, that's fair.
That they went into the church, and these students willy-nilly were like, well, I need an A. I'm gonna go sacrifice my life for a weekend
Well,
because
they didn't know they were sacrificing.
Victor Wong asked me to.
I mean, but I will say I love his.
They're not sacrificing their life in this movie.
Well, they are, but they don't know it yet. And once they realize that they're sacrificing their life, they can't get out of the church.
They don't tell them anything either. Like they're not saying like, "Hey, we got this creepy church on the south side with all these zombies, and Alice Cooper's leading the zombie army outside."
That's fair.
I was really hoping that wasn't Alice Cooper. It was just someone that really wanted to be Alice Cooper, but it is Alice Cooper.
Or why did you not want it to be Alice Cooper?
Just because I wanted it to be just
A rando that looked exactly
Exactly.
like Alice Cooper.
Yes.
What's the worst thing to? Yeah, like that's the worst thing ever is to like you're not Alice Cooper, you're just being mistaken for him.
Exactly. Yes.
I do love this opening thing that Victor Wong says to his group of students, where he talks about this idea of the rules that we know. We can assume time is narrow because it's like a clock. 1 second is 1 second for everyone. Cause precedes effect. Fruit rots, water flows downstream. We're born, we age, we die. The reverse never happens. But none of this is true. Say goodbye to classical reality because our logic collapses on the subatomic level into ghosts and shadows. And there's something, again, to go back to what we talked about within the Mouth of Madness of that sort of cosmic terror concept of like on a threaded level, it may be that reality is different than what you think that it might be. And I think for him to delve into that realm, and again, I don't know if you noticed in that 11-minute long opening credit sequence,
No, I was too distracted.
but that the screenplay is attributed to Martin Quatermass. Going back to Quatermass in the Pit, the British show with the subway that they dug into, and it had the alien inside of it. That the writer was actually Carpenter. He went by the alias Martin Quatermass.
Oh, okay.
So again, he's even this early on throwing in these influences from this idea, and there is obviously a huge overtone again of the Lovecraftian sort of mythos in this movie with the canister and with sort of like evil being something beyond this realm. So all those elements, again, as far as references go, play into this as well. Now, I will agree with you. Listen, I'm not going to be able to defend why there's 45-year-old students that don't know why they're there. And
Let me
they're
ask
doing
you
this.
another question.
Okay.
What is the machinery? Because they're supposed to be, psychologists. What else are they? Physiologists.
Physiologists. Yeah.
Physiologists.
No.
Like they have like a baby incubator in the room. Like, what is that for? Like, what is all this random shit that they bring in?
I don't
What are
know.
they doing with these machines?
Culture. I
Because-
didn't go to college for 25 years.
That's
I
true.
don't know.
I know you're not a scientist. But, like, what are they doing? Because most of it is people sitting around and kind of slowly, like, it's funny we keep bringing this movie up, but Sphere, they there's an element to that where it's like people kind of start getting taken off one by one,
Right.
and they keep forgetting like who. They keep saying who in this movie a lot. Like,
Yeah.
Who? Like they're like, oh, that.
Well, there's a running gag of,
Yeah.
of Susan, radiologist, glasses.
Who?
Like no one remembers who Susan is.
Exactly. It's yeah. Sorry, Susan.
Sorry,
It's like,
Susan.
sorry, Sally. But and then like the token black guy here, for some reason, like he has his cross on through this whole thing, like obvious big gold cross.
Right.
And then like in the middle of a scene, he just takes it off and hides it, and they don't. It's just like this random things that they're doing through this movie. It's just like what? So what is that supposed to mean? And then they never go back to it. I don't know. I'm sorry. I did not like this movie.
That's fine. That's fine. No, this is good. That's what makes for good conversation.
I agree.
I guess I see.
He is the token black guy, though.
I mean, it's true. It's true. He is, and he decides to start singing "Amazing Grace" after he's been possessed or whatever.
Yeah.
The possession stuff, I feel like that could have been much more interesting than it was. Instead, it was just sort of like the people are overtaken, and now they're they're evil, but they're not even necessarily. They're just servants. It's almost
they're just like standing around being skeptical. Like, and what's his name? The Asian dude, Walter, the skeptical Walter. He's the skeptical one through this whole thing.
Yes.
But he's also thinks he's a comedian, I guess. I don't know. He keeps trying to like
some pretty bad jokes.
Whew, especially
And
these
some pretty
days.
pretty
Did not
bad
age well.
Yeah, some pretty bad gay panic for sure. What does he say? He talks about, I used to break out as a kid. My doctor said it was homosexual panic.
It's just really hard to take some of these people seriously in the clothes they're wearing, like these 80s clothes.
That is true. Although there's
Just
something
like,
I actually
Walter, you're supposed to be the smart scientist and you dress like that. Like, how am I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
you look like an idiot. You look like you should be in Thrashing, not
the,
in.
the 80s was a different time.
I
Adam.
understand that, but I'm just saying.
I actually like
Didn't age well.
the main woman who
The main love interest.
No,
this is
I'm
my favorite. Oh, can I talk about her for a minute?
Yes, yes.
How she meets porno stash guy.
Yes.
And in their second meeting, he's like, "Hey, we should get coffee," and she calls him a sexist. And then the next scene, they're in bed together, just had sex,
Yep.
didn't even see the coffee.
Yep.
We're
And
not
he even
working up
says,
to it.
he's like, confirmed sexist. And then he's like, what's wrong, baby? You shut down on me. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I think we know
Nothing
why you
gets,
shut down on
a
you.
woman
Like,
hotter than than being sexist.
yeah, then being like, what's a pretty face like you doing all doctored up in this place? No, what I was going
Oh,
to
I'm
say is,
sorry.
speaking of the 80s clothes, the 80s clothes on the woman, Kelly, who's the one that becomes sort of the vessel.
Yeah.
And her, like, all of her skin peels off and
Yeah.
all that. Actually, her total mom from Growing Pains shirt that she has on somehow makes it 10 times creepier that she's all like messed up looking. Like, it looks way creepier because I'm like, but look at that weird sweater that she has on. Like, I don't know. To me, I feel like I can understand why every complaint that you have, but I really like the strangeness of what evil looks like in this movie enough that those elements don't really bother me. And actually, I have less complaints personnel wise than you do, and I have more complaints for
was
some
just
of what
easy to
we
pick
see. For some of what we see that's supposed to be creepy. Like, I think the worms on the window felt just like kind of gag
What about
Halloween.
the ants? Like, there's ants.
Same with the ants,
They never
like-
really say what that's for.
Well, and then the one character who is basically made out of beetles at one
yeah,
point.
like he falls apart.
And like the line before it that he says, I think is rad. Like, I love this, like, I got bad news for you, you know, like, you're all gonna die. Like, I like that stuff. Like, it's really cool.
I agree, but it's hard to take that seriously or care about it when I don't know what the fuck's going on, and like it's just like you're losing me in multiple places here.
Right. I guess that's. I mean, I think that for me anyway, I find that the swirling mass within the canister, the fact that they're trying to carbon
7
date it, and
million
it's
years old.
7 million years old, and it only opens from the inside. Even when
It does this cool effect where it like
it
drips
drips
up.
onto the ceiling, like all that
Yeah,
kind of
cool.
stuff totally works for me. I even like Alice Cooper and all the weirdos standing outside. I think it's a really interesting effect. Really quick, can we talk about maybe the Hall of Fame for stupidest kills in a movie? Because Alice Cooper impales someone with part of a bicycle in this movie. I don't know if you remember this scene.
Yes, I do.
I can't get that scene out of my head.
I couldn't tell exactly.
It's the back wheel and middle part of a bicycle.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I remember being fascinated about how stupid this was from the time I was a kid, only to find out by doing
He
some
did it
research.
on stage, right?
That's where he got it. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's Alice Cooper's own personal bicycle.
Well, and
that
it
he
was
uses to impale
like
somebody.
the guy who produced this movie is a producer of some of his records.
Yes.
So that's the connection.
So they're like, Alice,
come hang out on set.
bring your bike. so I was like, it made me start thinking, and I was like, okay, the very first one I thought of after this of like stupidest things like that, I was like, oh, well, what about where Clive Owen stabs the guy through the face with a carrot in Shoot 'Em Up?
I hate that movie.
That was one I thought of. Another one I thought of was in the movie Maximum Overdrive. Do you remember Maximum Overdrive? It's a Stephen King movie with it's got the semi truck in it that has like the Green Goblin's face on the front of it, and like all the machines go crazy, and a guy gets a can of soda, shoots out of a vending machine into a dude's nuts and kills him. And so that was another one I thought of.
That's the tops right there.
And then the other one is from the movie Deadly Friend. But she gets a basketball to the face.
Like Marsha Brady?
Okay, but it explodes her head.
Oh.
It's like her head explodes because the person who throws it's an android. If any of you out there can think of like a really good stupid kill, Sleepwalkers, the movie Sleepwalkers, another Stephen King one here. Somebody gets stabbed to death with a cob of corn. So that's a pretty good one. I guess one of the things I really like about this movie is that so often when we have some kind of a evil is broken out or this horrible thing is happening, you always go, well, get people from the college down here, get scientists involved, like
Sure.
have them research this. That this is much more what it would look like, which is a bunch of assholes sitting around that you're like, do something, and they're like, we've got the baby monitor hooked up to it, and here's what the reading is saying.
Transcribing these Latin math equations.
Right, and that they think that they're doing like all the good work that's supposed to be done from them.
I have to say one thing I did really love about this is the every time everyone falls asleep, they keep getting the same image of this dark figure coming out of a doorway of the church that they're in, but it's from the outside, and it was super effective. It almost had like almost a Ring feel to it, you know, where it just kind of it was a great Carpenter moment, I thought, captured in this pile of bullshit.
I would agree with you. I think it's one of the, at least for me personally, it's one of the scariest moments in most of his films. Actually, like it's very evocative to me. And again,
we keep seeing it over and over, and
you know,
a little more each time.
Well, and there's this concept of like it's this message from the future, and you know he filmed it on VHS and then played it through a TV and then filmed the TV.
Yeah.
And you know, you see Carpenter do this a lot in his films. You think about the early footage that they watch in The Thing, where they're seeing all the Norwegians and they're like, they're digging something up, but we can't see what it is because the footage is so bad. He really loved messing with that kind of an idea. Interestingly enough, Deborah Hill.
They seem like they're trying to. He almost tried to redo The Thing with this movie a little bit, like from some elements of them being trapped in a place, you know, multiple people
becoming sort of like infected with this thing. I mean, I definitely think that that's there. His longtime producer, Deborah Hill, who did The Thing with him and The Fog and Halloween and some other movies, actually had that reoccurring dream. And she was like, it was staticky and it was in front of a church and there's a dark figure walking out of the church. And she told John Carpenter about it. And he wrote this movie based upon her reoccurring dream.
Oh, wow.
And was like, I wanted to make it
Totally
as scary and I love this twist at the end after she basically sacrifices herself. And in that last version of the dream, it's her in the doorway instead of like, does that mean that she's become the Antichrist, or is like you just don't entirely know? And again, like it's those elements that to me still make at the heart of this, make it something that works. And that's taking into account all the corniness that you're talking about. Like, I think that's all totally valid. I guess I would love to see somebody remake this with all of the
I feel like they kind of did with
essence of it.
Session 9 a little bit. You remember that movie Session 9? It's a little different.
It's different in that
They
Session 9 there's no supernatural element
but
to it.
They took a lot of elements.
That's really
from it.
interesting.
Right?
Session 9's a really interesting movie to compare this to.
Yeah.
Because I do think that if you would have kept all the supernatural aspects of this with the aesthetic of Session 9 and the sort of like everybody's going off to work on different things, and when people are being attacked, most of it's happening off screen, and you could ramp up that tension. My God, this movie would be terrifying. Instead, it's, as you said, has a lot of weaknesses and a lot of challenges in it, with, in my opinion, some elements.
Well, that's putting it nicely.
You like this movie significantly less than I do, but I think that the elements of this that are exploring the concept of evil are some of the most fascinating, I think, that I've seen in a horror movie. And I don't know how long. I mean, you even referenced The Ring earlier in terms of that scene with the
footage that
the footage.
Keep watching over and over.
But even with The Ring, all it comes back to is one pissed off little girl. And like, these things don't scare me at the end of the day. As set pieces, moments scare me, but as an overall concept, doesn't scare me. And this here, the mirror and that hand coming out of the mirror, my God, that scares me.
Yeah, that
scares me so much.
That was done fantastically. We obviously see Satan's hand getting pulled in, and I was like,
not even Satan, it's Satan's dad.
Oh.
like Satan is whatever's inside the canister. Whatever's on the other side of that mirror is his father.
Oh, okay.
That's what when she's doing all that crazy typing, and she's the god plutonium will not save you. I live. Like, it's basically referencing that the canister is Satan. It infects Kelly. She goes and invites through the mirror Father, which is Satan's dad.
Yeah. The fact that it takes that much to explain that and it wasn't that obvious, I guess. Is a little. I mean, maybe it wasn't to me, because
what were you doing? Did you go make a sandwich?
I was concentrating on the wrong things, but this ending was excellent. I do have to say, for waiting through this movie for an hour and 40 minutes and just kind of like looking for something to grab onto. You know, there's definitely some Carpenter moments, especially the lady who starts getting the sores on the bed and just like melts into herself, which is like, oh man, it was creepy.
She's so like, well done. I got a bruise on my arm, and you're like, it's not a bruise, and it takes like 20 minutes for the other woman to be like, I've seen that before, and you're like, even if you hadn't seen it before, you wouldn't be like, hey everybody, come and look at Kelly's bruise.
Yeah,
it looks like an upside down cross with a hook on the top.
Who?
Yeah. Good callback.
Thank you. But you know, this with Satan's dad hand, you know, trying to get pulled through it. It's like monstrously big and muscular, and huge. And I was like, oh, that is fucking cool. That was so cool. I really, really enjoyed just that small element of that. Even
that's as much as you needed.
You know, you need that the mirror as kind of a gateway, right? And they finally find a mirror big enough to pull him through, and they're in the midst of it, and it was just really well done.
I love that other side of the mirror too, with that underwater kind of. And when I keep saying the love interest, that's terrible. Do we ever name the?
No, it's the love interest.
Okay, the woman. That's the love interest
with shitty red hair.
Yes, it's not that shitty. God, just everything about this movie. Even their hair.
Well, don't take it personally. You didn't make it.
That's true. I didn't make it. And I have problems with it. I'm just being silly. I totally have problems. I was like, oh, I wonder what Paul is going to think of this. This movie's got a lot of problems. And you're like, why did we watch this? The movie has a lot of problems. I'm like, I know. But when she pushes Kelly through, and right as Father Pleasant, when he throws the axe and it breaks the mirror, and we get these couple of flashes of her floating away, like into the underwater netherworld thing. and it flashes and flashes, and we just see her going
really
away.
Cool.
It's really creepy.
And
it's
Mr.
very,
Mustache
very
gets really sad really fast. He's not gonna have that piece of ass anymore.
She just got over him being sexist.
I know, and now they were gonna get married, I think.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. They were gonna tell each other they loved each other after 2 days together. But I mean, it's a pretty sweet mustache. I don't know. I would.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a nice mustache.
It really is. It's a good mustache.
Yeah, like I said before, just I got too distracted by the bad stuff about it to really care and being super invested in what it was really trying to say.
Didn't you want to see if Walter was going to get through that wall, though, to the other side when they were trying to dig him out? Why wasn't he helping the whole time?
I just wanted to... Yeah, Walter is
He's
worthless.
Just like, hurry up, you guys! And it's like, help!
Yeah. What are you waiting for?
He helps at the very last minute.
Yeah.
He could have been helping the whole time.
Not a fan of Walter.
No.
Walter,
He's much better in next week's movie.
I just wanted to know the balding guy what he was graduating in. That was my biggest thing.
Riding a bicycle and carrying beers and poltergeist. That's what he was getting ready to do. And he was in last week's movie, Starman. He's one of the cops.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think he had a hat on so you couldn't see his bald
Dirk
pate.
Blocker.
Dirk Blocker.
That was after he graduated from this college. Or before.
I finally graduated. Now I get to be a cop.
Again, yeah, just not my favorite of this festival, but that's okay. That's why we do this. Is why we have the conversation, is to kind of get through these movies and see really what holds up. Why does it hold up? Why does it not hold up?
And I feel like that this holds up more than you do, and I think that it's part of it may be nostalgia based. I mean, I remember seeing it many, many times when I was younger, but I also really, really like what this movie's about. Like, I like all of the. It's very scary to me, the idea of a group of scientists. I think back to something like when I was a kid, for some reason, the ending of Raiders of the Lost Ark always scared me really bad, because it's like there were so many... Okay, fine, they're Nazis. Fair enough. But there were so many people there that were like, we're going to investigate this thing, just to have their faces melted off. And like, as a kid, it always scared me so much, because I'm like, they didn't sign up for that. They didn't know that's what was going to happen. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Like, it turned out to be something more significant than we thought it was going to be. We're scientists. Yeah. And so instead, to be like, you show up as scientists and one of you gets pulled into a fucking mirror into the nether realm, like, that really freaks me out. There's something about that is like, you've signed up for something scientific because you believe that the world is made up of matter, and that like evil doesn't exist.
Oh, it's a cool take, especially with the religion twist on it inside of a church with the priest and everything. Like, I get why it's there.
I think the visuals of all that stuff are really cool too. Like, I love the way that those set pieces look. I love, again, it feels very Spielberg to me in a way of like this old rickety church, these big crucifixes everywhere, this weird 7 million year old canister with this swirling goop in it. And then they've strung in all of these electrical lights and all of these diodes and machines, and they've got it all hooked up. And
baby
you're like,
incubators,
the baby incubators. But this idea of like, oh, we can understand this, we'll be fine. Like, just that setup to me is like, that's my stuff, man. So again, I really laud Carpenter for being like, I want to explore the concept of horror and of evil within this realm where it's like, we're going to look at this from a scientific angle, right? And we can understand this. And so like when they see the bugs and the worms crawling on the walls, they're like, what an interesting phenomenon, right? Because that's how they're going to react, right? And I love all of that. And I just wish that it was something, because again, in that way, it seems like the opposite of The Thing. If you go in The Thing, they go like, if anything, like it's kind of a less logical leap to be like McCready being like, give me the flamethrower, we got to burn that thing. Like, if anything, you'd probably be like, there'd be more people like,
but I'm
we should probably study that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they do here. And I agree, like the human element is far diminished in this compared to other movies of Carpenter's that explore these ideas. But I just love to see something that's trying to explore that even if it does mean that we lose some of that human element by doing that. to me.
Absolutely. If you guys agree or disagree, definitely write in to deepdivefilmschool@gmail.com or leave a comment on
Right
the
across the
YouTube.
bottom here.
And let us know what you think about this movie. We had a fun conversation, though, I think either way.
We
At
definitely
least I
did.
did.
I definitely did too.
So please like and subscribe, follow us, do all that stuff if you can, if you like to. But we are going to end the festival next episode with Big Trouble in Little China.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys.
See you guys later. Do your kids do like school plays, stuff like that?
Yes, my daughter does.
Does she?
Yeah.
Like what kind of school plays?
It's just shitty elementary stuff. I mean, it's true. I mean, they're great. They're wonderful. But
I love her very much.
well, it's also like strangely political, and like it's always the same kids in the plays. Like she tries that every year and tries really hard and practices, and then they just give it to some asshole kid.
I feel like I remember that from being
You know the kid in Sixth Sense who does the
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
who does the cough
I've
syrup
been in
commercial.
I've been in a couple of
It's
commercials.
all a bunch of those guys.
Yeah. Is it really?
No, I don't know. But no, it is kind of political though. Yeah, she definitely.
Do you
hits on
find
it.
yourself like as an adult being like, oh, that douchebag kid again?
I mean, sure. Yeah. I like my kids.
I mean, yeah. Look, I'm not a fan of all children. I'm a fan of my child.
The thing that drives me the most crazy about those plays is why does everything have to be a fucking musical? Just do a play. Just make it a play.
Yeah.
Because you're turning the Addams Family into a musical. Why?
Yeah.
Dun-dun-dun-dun. You know, like what else is there? Like,
Apparently, there's many numbers that
so
you
it's
were
just
unaware
like,
of.
That just drives me crazy.
So they're all musicals
Yeah.
with child singing.
Oh man, they need some work on the audio department there
Yeah.
too. Yeah. But you know, it's a public school, so what are you gonna do?
Maybe what we should do is do a review of one of.
Yeah, that's what these people want.
That's what the school wants to.
My
Is like
11-year-old daughter's
So I heard you and your friend, both of you guys, middle-aged men, just trashed the school play this year.
Well, step it up.
Listen, Becky, did you see it? Because it's pretty bad.
Have you ever seen a play before?
Yeah, because what you guys are doing is garbage. It's a garbage play with garbage children in it.
For garbage.
And I'm not just saying that because my daughter wasn't the lead. But it didn't help.